Hey, Loughy, what are you doing for your 5-year wedding anniversary? Not that, just grinding 13 preseason games in mid-August. Sorry, babe, dinner plans have to wait. We're talking preseason football. That's what we're doing. I don't know what's become of me, but here we are, and I love it because it's like you're trying to crack the code on human behavior for all of these coaches and everything. It's actually pretty fun to analyze. So much different than the regular season. So I'll do my best to get you guys in and out as quick as possible, for as quick as we can for 13 games. But also, I wanted to let you guys know before we get started, I just started, along with a bunch of our other guys at OddsShopper, my own package in the OddsShopper marketplace. Would love to have you guys come hang out. We're talking premium Discord, premium picks, some free picks as well if you just want to hang for that. But all of that over there in the link in the description. If you don't want to watch this full video, all of my favorite picks go into there. All of my parlays, all of the round robins, ladder plays, player props for the regular season. And of course, I'm trying to get these in there as quick as I can before the odds move. Just like all of the game lines for the video of mine that comes out late Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever, for the regular season, I'll be trying to drop those plays Monday, Tuesday. So we're getting good value on all of that. And hey, maybe you just want to support your boy, come hang out, join a great community that we're going to build together. Would love to have you over there. Again, thanks for listening. Link in the description and in the chat. Let's get it going. First up, we got the Ravens and Falcons. Ravens -1, -120 on the money line, 35.5 point total. And I honestly don't think Taylor Heineke can be as bad as he was in week 1. He was atrocious. And Nathan Rourke was even worse. Michael Penix Jr. Was pretty good. We still should have had that Falcons first half spread versus Miami, but the Dolphins had 10 points off of turnovers, which didn't help us at all. And the Ravens against the Eagles last week had 82 passing yards. Josh Johnson was disastrous. Devin Leary averaged under 4 yards per attempt. And on his only snap, Emory Jones took a sack fumble that led to the Eagles winning that game. And of course, us not even getting the push on that Baltimore money line bet. But we know John Harbaugh is not going to play any starters. I'm not sure I play this one. Some other spots I really like we're going to get to in just a minute. Still waiting on more info as far as quarterbacks are concerned. But by the way it looks right now, if you wanted to bet this for any reason, I would just take Falcons money line at even money. I mean, call me crazy, but I still think Heineke's better than what we saw in week 1. We know that. And there's a lot of trade rumors swirling around him. So he may be looking to prove that he isn't the guy that we saw in week 1. Not to mention, Harbaugh's lost 3 straight preseason games now after winning 24 straight prior to that. So it appears his priorities have shifted elsewhere. Falcons, money line, even money, not a top play though. Giants at the Texans. Houston's a 2-point favorite. How about this? Tyree Jackson, the tight end for the Giants, is actually the emergency quarterback in this game. Drew Lock is out. Daniel Jones is expected to start, but I can't imagine that he's going to play a ton because he hasn't seen the field since week 9 of last season. I think we'll probably see a ton of Tommy DeVito. And Jones played 1 drive in week 2 last year. Check this out. It was a 10-play drive with 9 passing attempts and 1 scramble. He dropped back on every single play. He's played 24 snaps between in 2022 in week 2, and he dropped back 17 times. So that means that he's dropped back on almost 80% of his snaps in week 2 under Brian Daboll. Pretty crazy. And it makes sense. They want to see what he can do. They want to get the ball out of his hands, see what he can do as a passer. I know there's some rumblings about Malik Neighbors playing in this, but I'm not convinced we see him dealing with that ankle, even if he says he's good to go. And how about for Houston? You've got CJ Stroud played the entire first half last year in week 2. Will he play that same amount this year? I want to say no, because D'Amico Ryans actually knows what he has now, but I do expect him to play around or at least a quarter. That would make sense. I'm tempted to take over 7.5 in the first quarter, but you could see a very rusty Daniel Jones without a ton of weapons, especially if Neighbors doesn't play. So I don't hate that, but I actually like the Texans -1.5 in the first half. That's -110 pretty much everywhere. Stroud has a ton of healthy weapons. Just clearly has the advantage here, especially if Neighbors doesn't suit up. So I would pay attention to that. Like I said before, or if I forgot to mention it, follow me on Twitter at Loughy_D. It's LOUGHY_D, and I'll hit you with that stuff. But Davis Mills has the edge over Tommy DeVito too. Give me Texans -1.5 in the first half. Bengals at the Bears. Chicago's a 6-point favorite. These teams held joint practices this week, but Matt Eberflus said he's still going to play his starters. I guess it makes sense, right? You got a rookie quarterback. You're trying to gel. You got a lot of new players on this team. I don't know how much. It could be a series to a quarter and then sit all of them in week 3. Zach Taylor's not playing any Bengals starters outside of a cornerback battle that doesn't matter. He's 3-10 straight up in the preseason. Eberflus is 6-2. That doesn't do a ton for us as far as a 6-point spread is concerned. But I think the play here is still Chicago. Think of it this way. Like, you could play it conservative. You could take the Bears first half money line at -162 on FanDuel, by far the best odds there. And you could parlay that with something, get a 2-pick parlay, 2 favorites on the money line and come out okay. I don't love doing that, but I don't hate it here. Or you could make a play on Chicago just having a ton of offensive weapons to start this game, and you could grab the half-point first quarter spread at +102 on DraftKings. Honestly, that's a little sketchy, but that's where I'm going. Because you think about it, like, I'm not even entirely opposed to taking the Bears -6.5 on the game, because Brett Rippon and Tyson Bagent have looked pretty nice in the preseason. And Williams is at the very least playing a drive with all of the starters. Meanwhile, Jake Browning looked way worse than I ever could have expected, and Logan Woodside's going to follow him. But I do like the Bears -0.5 point in the first quarter because we're getting it at plus money. So let's take a stab there. You don't have to play a full unit on this, half unit play. It's a preseason, so you want to be, a little bit cautious and careful about how you utilize your bankroll. But I do like the Bears in the first quarter here against a Bengals team and a coach that doesn't really care much about what happens in the preseason. We'll start getting through some of these games a lot quicker, but this one, got to spend a second on, because the Chiefs and the Lions is an interesting game. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites. Now, here we go with Andy Reid again. Remember this for future reference. If Reid says that his starters are playing a quarter, it means they're playing a drive. If Reid says his starters are getting a full half, it means they're getting a quarter, okay? He does it every year. And now he's saying that the starters are going to play a full half again. If he does, fine. Blame me for it, but I can only go off of what's happened in the past. And Mahomes hasn't played a full half since 2019, 2018, his first year as a starter. That's his first year as a starter, is the last time he played a full half. Every other time, okay, and I'm counting week 3 in 2019 because that's kind of like the rehearsal week. He's played the first quarter, and he only plays into the second quarter if they're still driving when the first quarter ends. It's as simple as that. And Dan Campbell already said that most of his starters, if any of them, are going to play. So the big names are going to be watching from the sidelines. So I'm going to keep it simple. In every year since the new preseason format, the Chiefs have won the first quarter, and they've held their opponent scoreless. If you're betting this one, take the Chiefs -1.5 in the first quarter at -108 on DraftKings. And if you'd rather go Chiefs -4.5 in the first half, that's fine, because Carson Wentz is perfectly decent as a backup. But I'd rather bet on Mahomes versus the Lions' second-string defense and the Chiefs' first-string defense against the Lions' second-string offense. Like, you're talking Nate Sudfeld or Hendon Hooker. That's who we have to worry about. I'd rather do that than have to consume myself watching Chris Oladokun and Ian Book in the second half and sweat out the 7 points. Vikings at the Browns. Cleveland Browns laying 3 points here, 36.5 point total. No Deshaun Watson or Jameis Winston in this game. That means Dorian Thompson-Robinson's going to start, and Tyler Huntley's going to come in after him. I assume they both get a half. We're also not going to see Sam Darnold for the Vikings either, because, well, they've already had enough bad stuff happen lately. J.J. McCarthy's out for the year. Jordan Addison was carted off with an ankle injury, and they just held a joint practice with Cleveland, so we can't expect much here anyway. Plus, O'Connell never cared much about the preseason, and now we're talking about Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall leading the way for Minnesota. Look, give me the Browns -3 in this game. You can find -110 on a bunch of books out there, and under 35.5 on BetMGM. Browns -3 and under 35.5. Bills at the Steelers. All right, Steelers laying 5.5 points here, 36 point total. I don't love this game only because I can't find anything good on what Sean McDermott intends on doing here. Normally, I'd go back and see what they did in week 2 in previous years, but this one's a lot different because these teams had joint practices this year. Now, here's the wrinkle. The last time McDermott had a joint practice with any other team was 2019 against the Panthers, and his starters played 2 drives, but that was Josh Allen's second year in the league. And Mike Tomlin's playing his starters 4 drives, according to what he said. Russell Wilson's going to start, and if I had to guess, Fields comes in and finishes out the half. He was fine last week, Justin Fields, but, they had way too many self-inflicted injuries, particularly 2 fumbled exchanges on the snap with Fields under center. It was just ugly. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. And I think it's reasonable to want Pittsburgh here, especially considering Tomlin's favorable against the spread record in the preseason. But right now, I'm not betting this one, at least until we have more info on what the Bills plan on doing. Again, hit me up on Twitter. Check out our Discord. I'll have you there. Cardinals at the Colts. Colts -1.5 here. All right, so you had rain-soaked joint practices between these teams. We already know the starters aren't playing. Well, we know Kyler Murray's not playing. And Anthony Richardson, including Joe Flacco, both of them aren't playing for the Colts. So I expect a lot of Desmond Ridder and Clayton Tune for Atlanta. But also, the Colts have 3 guys who should get reps. Sam Ehlinger, Keaton Slovis, and Jason Bean. Bean actually looked solid in week 1, and it seems he could actually, realistically get the QB3 job. But I expect Ridder to play a good amount in this one. And it really just comes down to it being an even matchup, right? It's an even matchup in my opinion. So not a favorite game at all. I'm telling you guys the ones I like the most. But I'd grab Arizona +114 on the money line, only because I don't even know why they're dogs in this game. Commanders at the Dolphins. Miami's a 5-point favorite here, 37.5-point total. All right, here we go. Let's have some fun with this. I actually think this could be a sneaky spot to grab the Commanders money line at +200 on FanDuel. We don't know much about how much Tua and the starters are going to play. Last year in week 2, they played 2 drives, and that was the same week they had joint practices with the Texans. This year, they had joint practices with the Commanders, so maybe not much has changed. But here's the thing. Marcus Mariota, Sam Hartman are out, all right, for the Commanders. Do we see a lot of Jalen Daniels early on before he turns it over to Jeff Driscoll? Like, with how weird the preseason is and how much we can't take Mike McDaniel at his word, and he's not the only one, obviously. I'd rather just have a small play on the Commanders' money line than try and bet them as 5-point dogs or try and take Miami as a 5-point favorite. I like that one the least. There's nothing scary about Skylar Thompson or Mike White, and they should play the large majority of this game, unless McDaniel does something shocking that we haven't seen him do before, especially as far as joint practices are concerned. And Daniels looked excellent in joint practices. So what if he plays a lot here? Plus, if we're talking from a preseason perspective, the Commanders actually have a pretty decent amount of depth on offense. So here's our big shot for the week. Commanders +200 on the money line. Small play, but we're going to do it. Jets at the Panthers. Jets -1. I'm staying away from this. Look, we have no clue if Bryce Young is going to play. We may know by the time you watch this video. I don't right now. Or if Andy Dalton's going to be able to go. And if it's Jack Plummer and Jake Luton again, we saw what happened in week 1. That was just brutal. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play. We don't know how much Tyrod Taylor is going to play. Barely played in week 1. It's Friday. Neither coach has said anything. We're not going to take wild guesses here. It's Panthers and Jets in the preseason. Let's not worry about this one and move on. Seahawks at the Titans. All right, so Seahawks are 1-point favorites. It's a pretty ugly game. I'm passing on this one. You had joint practices. Neither coach intends on playing their starters. 2 rookie head coaches. So you're talking Sam Howell and PJ Walker at quarterback for Seattle, Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis for Tennessee. It's basically the same thing. That's why this game's a 1-point spread. Stay away from this one, guys. Unless you have a read, I don't. Leave a comment down below and let me know where you're at. All right, we've got to play for this one. Rams at Chargers. Chargers 1-point favorites, 33.5-point total. Based on what we know about Sean McVay's preseason coaching, I would expect Stetson Bennett to play a ton in this game. Maybe Dresser Wynn gets some reps, but I could see Bennett playing the entire game. The same guy that threw 4 picks last week, okay? And McVay loves to just run these guys out there for the entirety of the game in the preseason. And the Chargers, you get Easton Stick, Luis Perez, and Max Duggan. Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey are expected to play, but they're going to play sparingly. So that doesn't move the needle for me at all. But I know the last 2 preseason games between these 2 teams went over. But with these quarterbacks, I just can't get there. Give me under 33.5. And I'd lean Chargers -2 on Caesars as well. Because, look, there's not a lot to get excited about here. But in the same breath, like if you've got a full half or a full game from Stetson Bennett, maybe you get Dresser Wynn. I still think there's a little bit more going for the Chargers in this spot, but either way, under 33 would be my favorite play from this one. Bucks at the Jags. We got another play here. Jags are 2.5-point favorites. I like the Jags to win by a field goal here. Now, listen, I'm not saying Mac Jones is a world beater, but he and CJ Beathard Beathard are playing a half each in this game, according to Doug Peterson, and they both looked solid in week 1 against Kansas City. Kyle Trask and John Wolford for Tampa Bay got the job done and got the win, but Cincinnati, like we've talked about, they just don't care. And I really thought Jake Browning would be better, but he was terrible. Also, Trask and Wolford made a lot of mistakes that they just escaped. So say what you want about Mac Jones, but he had nothing to work with in New England. And when he did, they got injured. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have a lot to work with in a preseason game, but I still like him as the best quarterback in this game. And I don't even think it's particularly close. Give me the Jags -2.5, baby. Cowboys at the Raiders. All right. Raiders are 6.5-point favorites. Dak Prescott's not going to play. Most of the starters aren't going to play, if any. Leaves us with Trey Lance and Cooper Rush. Antonio Pierce is playing his starters, but we don't know how much because he said he's just going to play him like every game in the preseason. It's one of those games where I typically stay away from with a 6.5-point spread. Plus, the Cowboys have had some of these crazy games in the preseason where they just pop off out of nowhere for a ton of points. So pass for me, but we got a ton of games to take advantage of. Appreciate you guys, as always, sticking around, watching these videos, supporting me and the channel. And again, if you want to hang out in the Odd Shopper Marketplace, my package is down there below. Not this, the other package you can find in the description or the pinned comment. Come hang out, pop in the Discord, say what's up. We'd love to have you there. And we'll have a great preseason and a great regular season and some basketball as well. We'll see you back here for week 3. Peace.